Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. It is with tremendous joy in my heart that I introduce you to Jenny Locklin. Jenny is an expert when it comes to humor and using humor to get even better results in all areas of our life, including our communication and our work or our business. In addition to being a comedian, she also coaches business owners and other business leaders on how to create even more effective presentations and how to add humor to make their message more engaging and more memorable. Jenny has won many, many competitions, including winning the Toastmasters International Humorous Speech Contest, not once, but twice, and being featured on the Dr. Oz show for winning the funniest video contest, which is just so cool. Now, on a personal note, Jenny and I met at Toastmasters many years ago. I want to say maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And Jenny has supported me on my journey to bring humor into my own presentations. I've hired her as a coach and just love her approach. And I'm so excited that she's here to share with you how you can bring humor or even more humor into your life to get better results and to have more fun. So welcome, Jenny.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Thank you. So how about we kick it off in the usual way that we do on this podcast, which is to ask you, how did you get into this world of being a comedian and coaching people on comedy?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, when I was in high school, I went to a really big high school. And as you might be voted, most likely to become a doctor, most likely to succeed, most likely to be an athlete, I received an award voted by my classmates, and my award was Best Laugh. Now, at the time, I was really kind of like, what? And my dad would always he was just so proud of that. And it wasn't until I got older that I actually appreciate that now. And so how I got started in using humor more in your life is I always had a great sense of humor. I always found things funny. And so you might be listening and going, well, I don't really feel like I'm a funny person. I wish I was funny, but I just wasn't born funny. It is a skill. That's the good news. It is just like learning how to play golf, learning how to use the computer, learning how to be a better speaker. Using humor is a skill that you can develop. And the first step is just being able to laugh at other things. And most importantly, laugh at yourself. So I kind of always had that, always found a lot of different things to be funny. We always laughed a lot in my family growing up and always appreciated that and was able to laugh at myself. So that would be the first suggestion is if you feel like you want to be funnier, then start laughing at yourself. And easiest way to do that, look at old photos you're, growing up. I mean, that makes you laugh, or maybe some silly mistakes that you have done. And if you can kind of start to just like mindset, right? It's getting in like a muscle. Once you start learning how to look for that, you start getting stronger and faster and you start using it more. So I always thought things were funny, had a sense of humor. And then I joined, as you know, Toastmasters. And that's kind of when I figured out how to use humor more. I started doing speeches and injecting humor. And then it just kind of got more and more comfortable. And the rest is, history sort of thing.
Awesome. And I'm so grateful that you talked about how some people just have that mindset, this kind of limiting belief, I'm not funny. I'm not naturally funny. I can try to be, but, I just don't have it. And so it really is a skill. That's one of the things that I really can acknowledge that you're sharing. And how about for those individuals right now that say, okay, it's a skill. And one of the things I can start with is by, going, looking at myself and kind of finding humor. And what if it's really hard to do that. Like, what if we just don't know what to make fun of ourselves, or we worry that we'll be judged if we do that, right? That it might lessen how people see us if we, shine a light on what's not perfect about ourselves.
Well, so one suggestion is there is actually a formula that comedians use to make something funny. And that formula is pain plus time equals comedy. Pain plus time equals comedy. So if you think about that, the easiest way to think of something in your own life, like how can I laugh at myself? Well, think of firsts, like your first, when you think back at when you were a kid, some of the things you did to your parents, right? I mean, I used to chase my sister with a hot curling iron and scissors. And like, that was pretty painful probably for my parents at the time. But now that time has passed, we can laugh at her scars. No, I'm just kidding. She doesn't have scars. But, my point is, those are the kind of stories you're probably telling your friends, things that you did as a kid to your parents, things you're not sitting there telling your friends, I got straight A's and read all day. You're telling these kind of first experiences that maybe were embarrassing, humiliating, painful. And now that time has passed, you can look back and laugh. So suggestion would be, think of your first kiss. That might have been, maybe you can laugh about that now. Maybe your first job, your first client, maybe the first sale you ever made. You said some really like things you wouldn't say now. And now you can look back and go, that was pretty funny because time has passed. I'm a lot better now. And I can laugh about that. Your first job, first car, first time in prison. I mean, all of these things. I mean, the first time, Vera, the very first time I did stand-up comedy, I was backstage at an open mic, and I was so nervous. I was the only middle-aged mother, and I was surrounded by like 20-year-old dudes. And I was so nervous. And the guy in front of me, before me, starts jumping up and down. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, you gotta get out your nerves somehow. I was like, oh. So I started to jump up and down. But I'm a middle-aged mother. And for those of you who don't know, especially if you're a man, there's a reason why middle-aged moms are not like jumping on trampolines all day. And I peed and I had gray joggers on. And we've all seen like when a person in a gray sweatshirt is sweating, it's that color shows wetness like no other color. And at that moment, the MC was like, hey, put your hand, and introduced me. I mean, talk about, was that painful? Very much so. Was I humiliated? Was I having like night terrors that night? Yes. But time has passed and now you can laugh about it. So, or maybe failures. I mean, here's another really easy way to find where, and you have to look. That's the key. Just like you teach with mindset, it's changing that lens. It's changing the way you're looking at something. So failures, easiest thing to kind of think of is like maybe relationships, right? Or in marriage, my husband and I, we were just having an argument the other day, and he was like, you're undermining me. I was like, when was I undermining you? And then he like lists all the times. And I was like, that's not undermining. It's coaching. Okay. Think of me as like your mentor. And I actually said it in all sincerity, like so cocky. And he started laughing like, are you kidding me right now? And I started to laugh like that was a ridiculous thing to say. And just that moment, just that switch in emotion and energy changed everything, because we could have gone down that path of like, I got to be right and all that. And we started to laugh, and we still kind of joke about that. So now anytime I'm doing something, I say, it's coaching, honey, or maybe with parenting. I know you're a parent of 3 amazing girls. I have a 16-year-old daughter. But when she was about 8, I was driving her to school. I can still remember it now. And I'm sure you drive that school carpool lane is super, super stressful. And I was so stressed. And my daughter at 8, she goes, Mom, wow, with that sunlight coming in through the window. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, I can see all the hair on your chin. Okay. Again, was that a painful moment for my ego? Yes. But time has passed, right? And now I wax. Like, I've learned from these things. So these things, you can do the same thing, but you have to look for them. You have to and the easiest way to kind of think about them, and it's an exercise, training your mind to look for them, is firsts and failures. And we all have those.
Well, thank you for these awesome strategies. I imagine people listening already, their mind is being flooded with like ideas of firsts or failures, and, to kind of spin it around, right? To kind of look at the funny angle now that some time has passed, as you said, from those failures. And it's so cool that you shared the example with your husband, because, when we're in relationship, especially under stress and stressful moments, we tend to like fire off these kind of programs, if you will, these strategies, right? Saying the same things, getting upset by the same triggers. And it's like this dance, right? Where we're just kind of in that whirlwind, and anything that can break the pattern, whether it's a loud sound or humor or, being shocked by whatever it is, anything to break that that pattern is a really good thing, because all of a sudden it's almost like, okay, what just happened, right? And then we can get outside of ourselves and maybe at least have a chance at looking at the situation from another angle. So I love that you said humor is a really great way to kind of just break that tension, path, if you will, that tension. And what came to mind actually, as you were sharing that, is that humor can also be used, or at least in my experience, in very dark moments. So I remember when my father was, kind of in his last days before he passed away. And, with my siblings and I, in such a dark place, there was, we were able to bring a little bit of humor, which seems so wrong, but at the same time, it's just so helpful, right? In a very loving way, of course, but it was almost like laughing about death, which is such a bizarre concept to think about, but yet it helped to release that tension, and, for us to enjoy more of those last days with my dad. What, if anything, is coming up for you around that, like kind of using humor in really dark moments of our life?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about sometimes you have to cry until you laugh. And of course, laughing until you cry is the best. But oftentimes, so let's talk about some things that you, as you're listening, might be feeling in dark times. So we just experienced COVID. We're still experiencing COVID, the pandemic. And think about what happened last year with all the changes and the fear and the darkness and the struggle and just the change of everything. And do you remember, I'm sure you received many of these, Vered, and you listening, there were so many funny memes going viral, right? It was all the toilet paper. I mean, how many funny memes were there being sent around about toilet paper? The new 2020 tattoo was like toilet paper. Or do you have a graduate that's graduating from college? Get them the commemorative toilet paper earrings. I mean, there were all these funny things, or maybe like women who weren't able to go to the salon and are gray roots. And there were all these funny memes about that, or kids not being in school. There was a really funny meme of this guy, full mustache. He looked like he was 40. He was on a motorcycle. And I think the quote was like, finally, we're now able to go back to third grade. and it made you laugh, because why did those things make you laugh? Because you were experiencing them and it was really hard. And so if you saw things coming through on your social media or a text from someone, and it was making fun of how hard it is, it was And just that laughter, like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I feel. So that, and like you had said, you felt like it was inappropriate, or you felt guilty laughing about, with your dad. But and sometimes you might feel cold-hearted. Like I've experienced this. My mom, she has dementia, and she's in a memory care facility now. But when we had a caretaker, and again, talk about cold-hearted, humor and laughter is the only thing that's really getting us through it. And she still laughs at things. She still has a great sense of humor. So she had a caretaker named Cassandra, but she always called her Costanza, like George Costanza from Seinfeld. And then she had another caretaker, and this caretaker taught her how she vapes. I mean, I was like, what? And at the time it was awful, right? But then we were laughing, and you might think that's really awful. Like, how can you laugh about that? But it doesn't matter. It only matters to you. If you find it funny and helpful and it gets you through it, you don't have to worry or feel guilty or cold-hearted that you're laughing about that, because if it gets you through it, that's all that matters. You're not doing it to be mean.
And, to bring some science into this, we know, and there's tons of research published on this through the Mayo Clinic and other institutions, that laughter, humor is really, really good for our health, right? It soothes that tension that we feel. It activates our stress response. It actually stimulates organs like the heart, the lungs, muscles. It helps to improve our immune system. It actually relieves pain. I mean, there's so much research about the physiological effect of humor, of laughter, to heal our body in the physical sense. And then also from my work in logotherapy, which is something, it's a meaning-based therapy, that when we talk about meaning, finding meaning in the things in our life, the happy moments, the painful moments, and anything in between, it's the ability to change the meaning comes from, bringing humor, love, and beauty, right? Those are three ways that we can transmute an energy, even in dark times when somebody is dying. I know they do this actually with, in palliative care, in terms of, helping people to perceive their situation, whatever it may be, in just a lighter way, through bringing, beauty, humor, and just love into it. So I'm so grateful to you that you're sharing this with us and bringing these real examples, because it actually teaches us how we can look at things in a different lens in our own life. Now, if we were to kind of now change the direction of our conversation to be more, from a career business perspective, how can humor help us to be better leaders, to be able to influence people more effectively?
Well, I think one of the objections that sometimes people have in professional settings is they feel like, well, I'm talking about something very serious. I'm talking about cancer, or I'm talking about dying, or I'm talking about sales, or I'm a financial advisor. I don't want to be a clown. And they kind of, they say no to using any kind of humor because they think it will cheapen it, or they'll appear goofy. But there is certain kinds of ways you can add humor and fun. And we're not talking falling on the floor laughter. You're not trying to be a comedian. You're just trying to engage and connect and add more interest in what you're talking about. And so there's a lot of, like, even when you speak, Vered, when we've talked, there's so many ways. Well, first of all, let's talk about why. Why would somebody in a business setting want to use any kind of humor? Well, because humor energizes your audience. Even if it's just a funny image or a funny GIF, the animated image, or a dog video or whatever. If it's just something like, just a little smile, or just getting people to smile and giggle and get off their phone and stay engaged, right? That is helping you connect with them. And even better, when you, the speaker, can see your listener kind of perk up and kind of, smile or laugh, it helps you relax. It's almost selfish. Like in a selfish way, you're getting so much from it as the speaker because you're seeing, oh, they're connecting. I'm feeling so much more relaxed. I'm so nervous, but that made me, feel more confident. And so it keeps them engaged. It adds some fun. It also makes them like you even more. You're human, right? You don't want to be so stiff. So those are some reasons. And also there is a quote, and that is, at the end of laughter is the height of listening. At the end of laughter is the height of listening. So if you really want, let's say you're about to give your sales close, or ask for the call to action or whatever, or you're about to go into a lot of really dry statistics that are very important, you could get them to kind of chuckle and laugh right before that, and it helps them pay attention. And we all know, whether it's virtual or in person, people are just, if they're not engaged, they're picking up their phone. It's just so hard to keep people's focus nowadays. So, and then you asked, did you want me to share how to do that? Some ways?
Yes, please. Absolutely. I think everybody listening is like, yeah, that makes sense. And I want to do that. I just, please help me. So what can they do? So there's a few easy ways, and that is, and by the way, whichever way you choose, whichever option you choose, give yourself compassion and time to practice, just like any other skill. You're going to try it and you might go, oh gosh, right? Or maybe you've tried using humor before and it flopped. No one laughed. You felt foolish and you thought, I'm never going to do that again. But a couple things with using a little or inserting a little humor. If you, let's say you're listening to a financial advisor, and then all of a sudden they insert like a knock joke and it doesn't get any laughs, it's awkward, right? It's like, what? Where did that come from? But if that financial advisor is talking about professional things and then all of a sudden inserts a fictitious or funny statistic, or a dog managing his stock market or whatever, and let's just say nobody laughs, it's not awkward because it supported what he was talking about. It's when, so you want to make it relevant. So if you're talking about fitness and you inject some joke about fitness and it doesn't get any laughs, doesn't matter. No one will even notice. They'll just think you were just trying to make a point. So that's one little tip. Keep it relevant to what you're talking about. Another way is images. Whether you're using virtual or whether you're doing in person, there are so many funny, you just go to Google and, funny dogs and babies. And my mom will agree with this. You can never go wrong with dogs and babies. No one will ever be offended. It will never be inappropriate. It doesn't matter if they're 20 years old or 120, they will think it's funny or, cute. So that's always safe. And there's so many, there's GIFs, there's images, there's videos, and the image can be your punchline. So you could say something like, let's say, as you're talking about mindset, have you ever, you decide you're going to have a better mindset, right? And you think you expect your mind, your mood and your mindset to be like this. And then you show, positive. And then you could say, but in 5 minutes, it really looks like click. And then whatever that funny image is, maybe it's like a dog, like slobbering on the couch or whatever. That image is your punchline. And so you don't have to, tell a joke, think of a joke. You're just using the image to get some engagement and some fun. Does that make sense? Oh, it's brilliant. And it also reminds us of how important timing is and practice.
Yeah.
Right? To make sure that the click happens at the right time, not too early, not too late.
Right.
And this is where practice and feedback comes in.
Right. And that's why I definitely want to stress, give yourself practice with this. Be really patient with yourself. And if it doesn't work, just keep trying it with the timing, like you said, because a lot of times people will show the funny image, right? And then they'll go, and you'll feel like this. And it's like, the timing was off and you won't get a laugh and you'll think, oh, that wasn't funny. It was funny. You just got to work on your timing. Another easy way or easier way is stories. You've probably are telling stories in business and in your personal life, and you can exaggerate, like the example I told about when I did the open mic and I started jumping up and down, I peed myself. Well, I didn't really like pee myself. I'm not like that bad. I peed like a little, but but for the sake of the story, I had to make it sound like I peed myself, right? And so you might be thinking, well, I don't want to lie. Well, I mean, you're not harming your listener, and it's about you. So you have that kind of author, you have the right to do that, kind of beef it up. Sometimes the truth isn't funny enough, so you kind of just exaggerate it a little bit. But stories are really, and these stories because they happen to you, so it's not hard for you to remember them, and you've probably told them before. So does that help?
It does. And just if we were to dive a little bit deeper into kind of the finding the humor in stories in our own life, what other tips do you have? I mean, so if let's say I'm about to give a business presentation, let's say I'm a financial advisor and I'm, something about numbers or statistics or something like that some people would consider not, super engaging kind of stuff, to some audiences. How can I bring story into scenario like that, keeping it relevant and at the same time, helping people to connect with the story? Because my thought is, okay, some of my stories they have not experienced in their own life, right? So it's like, okay, should I choose a story that's related to our work so that maybe they've had a similar situation with a client or with a peer? So I guess what I'm getting at is, how do you know what story is the right story, and how do you pull the funny parts or potentially funny parts out of a real life situation?
Mm-hmm. Well, the good news about figuring out what story to tell is you could just have 2 or 3 funny stories, and a story doesn't have to be long. It could just be a few sentences, like when I'm saying I was driving my daughter in the school carpool lane and she said about my chin hair, right? I mean, that was like a few sentences. But the good news is, once you have a couple of stories, or even just one story that you feel comfortable telling, and you feel like there's some humor, some fun there, or self-deprecate. Again, by the way, self-deprecating humor, you can never go wrong, because no one's going to be offended. You're making fun of yourself. And so no one's ever going to complain that, you insulted them. But so let's take that example about I was jumping up and down behind stage at the open mic. So that story I was telling you because I was trying to make the point of your first time doing something. But if I was talking to a bunch of a different audience, and I was talking about maybe the difference between men and women, I could use that story, right? This guy is able to jump up and down with no problem, but not me. Or maybe if I'm talking to an audience and the topic or the point of the story I'm trying to make is how to handle butterflies and nerves in life, I could probably use that story, right? Or maybe my audience is a bunch of, empty nest, middle-aged women, and I'm talking about getting older and women and hormones. I could probably use that story and make the point, we're women are just not like what we used to be, or whatever, so you can change the point and the topic based on who you're talking to, and yet still use the same story.
Wow, cool. So can you share with us an example of a client who, used story and it worked?
Yes. So in fact, I just was helping someone, this company that they work for, or their company, is Optavia. But if you look at the way it's spelled, it's not, you would pronounce it Optavia because of the vowels. It's like Optavia. And so I was saying, so we needed some way to kind of break the ice at the beginning, and just something kind of fun, not hilarious, just a little fun. And I said, now I have to ask, I always mispronounce the name of your company. I always want us to call it Optavia. Do other people call that? And she's like, oh, all the time. And I said, well, do you make fun of that? And she's like, well, no. And I said, well, if you hear that all the time, so here's a tip for you. If you hear something all the time, people get confused about something, or people are always asking you, you're getting the same question often, there's something there. So she made up kind of this story, and she was like, so, here's some ways that you can help. Here's some tips on how to pronounce the word Optavia. It's up to Mia, Mamma Mia. And then she went like again, it was really short, but we used a situation and made a short little story, and it connected, because what were they doing? They were thinking, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Wow. So that's a cool example, because it presupposes that it's really important for us to understand our audience and what they may be thinking. And this is why, asking questions, let's say if you're a professional speaker, knowing who the audience is, what their issues are, or problems, what's keeping them up at night, is going to help inform us as to what kind of humor, stories, and so on to utilize to really connect at that deeper level. And I think it also brings vulnerability, right? In certain situations, right? Like if I am like you, right? You are like me, we both had a similar experience or felt the same emotions. There's a connection there. And that's a really important thing as well. So Jenny, this has been so incredibly helpful for me personally, but I imagine also for anyone listening who, regardless of where they are along the continuum of humor and utilizing humor in their life, it's always great to bring even more when it's appropriate, and it's well received in a situation where it could be well received, because it just, as you said, brings even more connection, more fun, and just that kind of soul to soul, if you will, human to human, no matter where we are in the organization, no matter who we are, mothers, fathers, we all are people that want to have fun and want to feel ease and want to experience connection. And it's just so cool to use humor as a vehicle for doing that. And you've helped us to do that by giving us some really specific tips. And for those people that want even more, maybe they need your help with a presentation that they're putting together, that they love what they're hearing and they want to learn more, or maybe they want to bring a comedian to an event. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can go to Creative Message Media. It's a mouthful, creativemessagemedia.com. And my email, I'll give my email as well, Jenny, Jenny, at creativemessagemedia.com.
Thank you, Jenny. And with all my heart, thank you. Thank you personally for all that you've done for me over the years. And thank you for sharing this with our audience. It's such an important message, and we all deserve to have more humor and fun in our life.
Well, and I want to thank you, Virid, and as you're listening, Virid is an easy laugh. So if you're watching this as on the video form, you can see she's an easy laugh. That's your ideal audience. And she's got a great smile. But I also want to give you as a listener a little heads up. You will also find that not everyone is an easy laugh like Virid. They're not so smiley and expressive. And you might think, they don't think this is funny. I can't tell you how many times I've had people that look like stone face, or like this, scowling, and you think, oh no. And they're processing, they're thinking, and they're taking it all in. And don't be alarmed or disarmed or whatever, frustrated or discouraged if they're not reacting like Virid, because everybody reacts and responds and is more or less expressive. So you just know that what you're doing or trying to do is in the spirit of fun. You're trying to get somebody to smile and laugh. And if nothing else, at least it will make you smile and laugh. And actually, if it bombs, the good news is that will be your story. Over time, you will be able to tell people, no, you can't be worse at humor than I am. Let me tell you what happened when I did this joke, So that's the good news, right?
Love it. Brilliant, brilliant. And it also reminds us of how important feedback is. And this is why I kind of want to quickly look back to things like Toastmasters, which have tremendously helped me. And I know you as well. And for anyone who is looking for an opportunity of how to practice more and get feedback, certainly Toastmasters is one excellent way to do that through the lens of, being a better communicator and influencer. So once again, Jenny, you're just so awesome. And with all my love, I want to thank you again for your time today and for sharing all this awesome stuff with us.
Oh, thank you, Vered. All right. Go out, watch some YouTube videos, Google funny dogs, babies, order Jim Gaffigan's book. He's a great clean comedian. Go on Netflix, search for stand-up comedy that's, PG, whatever your preference is, but just get yourself to try to find something that will make you smile and laugh every day. And it's like a muscle. You'll just get even stronger, and it's a learned skill.
Thank you, Jenny.